Right now, a rebel group in Yemen is holding a huge portion of global trade hostage. They've essentially turned one of the planet's most critical waterways, the Red Sea, into a maritime firing range. And this isn't just some regional dispute. These attacks are forcing thousands of giant cargo ships to take a costly, dangerous, and very long detour around an entire continent. The ripple effects are spreading worldwide, sending economic shockwaves that threaten to jack up the price of pretty much everything, from your running shoes to your phone. So, how exactly is this happening? First, we'll look at who the Houthis are and what their attacks actually involve. Then, we'll get into the massive economic fallout, what it really means to disrupt 15% of the world's trade. And finally, we'll examine the huge international military response, a coalition of naval power trying to restore order to this vital commercial artery. This is the story of how a local conflict became a problem for all of us. To really get the scale of this crisis, you have to look at a map. For global trade, the Red Sea isn't just water. It's a superhighway. It connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean through the Suez Canal, creating the absolute shortest sea route between Europe and Asia. About 12 to 15% of all global trade and an incredible 30% of the world's container shipping passes through this channel every year. It is one of the most critical economic choke points on the planet. At the southern end of this highway is a narrow strait called the Bab el-Mandeb, which means the Gate of Tears. At its narrowest, it's only about 20 miles wide. It's from here on the coast of Yemen that the Houthi movement has managed to punch way above its weight. The Houthis, also known as Ansar Allah, are a Zaydi Shia political and military group that popped up in northern Yemen back in the 1990s. They've been fighting a brutal civil war for years and control a lot of western Yemen, including the capital, Sana'a, and crucially, that Red Sea coastline. Starting in late 2023, the Houthis kicked their operations into high gear, launching a campaign against commercial shipping. They said their actions were in solidarity with Palestinians during the war in Gaza, and at first they claimed they were only targeting ships linked to Israel, but their definition of a legitimate target has turned out to be dangerously flexible. Since their campaign began, they have launched hundreds of attacks against vessels using a surprisingly sophisticated mix of anti-ship ballistic missiles, explosive drones, and fast attack boats. This isn't random. It's a calculated campaign of asymmetric warfare, where a non-state actor is using advanced weapons to put global commerce at risk. The attacks have been audacious and sometimes devastating. In November 2023, Houthi commandos staged a brazen helicopter raid to hijack the Galaxy Leader, a vehicle carrier, taking its 25 crew members hostage. The ship is still being held by the Houthis in Yemen. Things have also turned fatal. In March 2024, the true confidence was struck, killing 3 seafarers, the first deaths of the campaign. Shortly after, the bulk carrier Rubimar was hit. It leaked a disastrous trail of fuel and its cargo of 21,000 metric tons of hazardous fertilizer before it finally sank, creating a huge environmental hazard. After a brief ceasefire in May 2025, the attacks came roaring back with deadly results in July. The Greek-owned bulk carriers Magic Seas and Eternity Sea were both attacked. While the Magic Seas crew was rescued after abandoning ship, the assault on the Eternity Sea was brutal, leaving 4 crew members dead. The ship was severely damaged and later reported sunk. These incidents sent a chilling message to the shipping world. No ship is completely safe. The Houthis then announced a 4th phase of escalation, vowing to target any ship owned by a company that deals with Israeli ports, no matter its flag or destination. This was a major escalation, turning a targeted campaign into a near-total blockade on any trade they see as linked to their enemies. The most immediate and logical reaction from the shipping industry was to just avoid the area. Why risk a billion-dollar ship and its crew when you can just go the long way? But the long way is a detour with massive consequences for modern logistics. It means rerouting ships from the Suez Canal all the way around Africa via the Cape of Good Hope. This isn't a small change of plans. It adds 10 to 14 days and up to 11,000 nautical miles to a single trip between Asia and Europe. The initial impact was dramatic. In the first few months of the crisis, traffic through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait plummeted. While traffic has seen some recovery since, it remains well below pre-crisis levels. The world's main commercial artery was clotting, and the global economy started feeling the squeeze. The costs tied to this giant detour are astronomical. First, there's fuel. A longer journey means burning way more of it, with some estimates suggesting the rerouting adds up to $1 million in fuel costs for a single round trip. Then there's insurance. For the ships still willing to risk the Red Sea, war risk insurance premiums have skyrocketed, sometimes jumping by nearly tenfold. And of course, that brings us to freight rates, the price of moving a container from A to B. These costs have been on a wild ride. Early in the crisis, spot container rates from Shanghai to Europe shot up by an eye-watering 256%. While the rates have bounced around since then, they're still way higher than they were before the attack started. This isn't just a headache for big corporations. These costs don't just disappear, they get passed down the supply chain. The manufacturer pays more to ship components, the retailer pays more to stock the shelves, and eventually you pay more for the final product. The disruption adds inflationary pressure to economies, especially in Europe, which relies heavily on the Suez route for trade with Asia. The impact isn't the same for everyone, which is a key part of the Houthi strategy. By claiming to target ships with links to Israel, the US, or the UK, they've created a two-tiered system of risk. This acts like an economic sanction, forcing higher costs and risks on the Houthis' chosen enemies. Energy markets are also on edge. Around 12% of the world's seaborne oil and 8% of its liquefied natural gas, LNG, pass through the Suez Canal. The crisis creates a constant threat of price volatility. A single major hit on a large oil tanker or LNG carrier could have immediate and widespread consequences. And then there are the countries caught in the middle. Egypt's economy is deeply connected to the Suez Canal, and the transit fees from ships are a massive source of revenue. The sharp drop in traffic has been a major financial blow to the country. It's a stark reminder that in our connected world, an attack in a tiny strait can cause economic pain thousands of miles away. As the attacks piled up and the economic damage grew, the world couldn't just sit back. Freedom of navigation is a pillar of international law and trade. In December 2023, the United States announced a multinational naval coalition, Operation Prosperity Guardian. The mission was clear: defend commercial ships, deter the Houthis, and keep the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden safe. Soon after, the European Union launched its own defensive naval mission, Operation Escalates, to protect vessels in the region. Advanced warships from the US, UK, EU, and other partners converged on the area, equipped with top-of-the-line radar and multi-million-dollar missile interceptors. And they've been busy, successfully shooting down countless Houthi drones and missiles, preventing many attacks from hitting their targets. But even with all that defensive firepower, the attacks haven't stopped. The sinkings of the Ruby Mar and the deadly attacks on the True Confidence and Eternity Sea all happened under the watch of this naval armada. This shows just how tough the mission is. The Red Sea is a massive area to patrol, and the Houthis are fighting a smart, asymmetric war. They can launch cheap drones that cost just a few $1,000s at warships whose interceptor missiles can cost over $2 million a pop. That's an economic fight the navies can't win. The attackers only have to get lucky once. The defenders have to be lucky every single time. This led to the next phase of the response: direct strikes. The US and UK have carried out numerous airstrikes on Houthi targets inside Yemen, hitting radar sites, missile launchers, and command centers. But they haven't delivered a knockout blow. The Houthis are a hardened, decentralized force with years of experience surviving a civil war. Their equipment is often mobile and easy to hide, making it hard to take out from the air. Plus, these strikes always carry the risk of making the conflict even bigger. In the midst of all this, it's the seafarers who are paying the highest price. Crews sailing into the Red Sea live with the terrifying threat of a sudden missile or drone strike. They're on the front lines of a fight they have no part in. The psychological toll is immense, and the deaths and kidnappings are a grim reminder of the human cost of this crisis. It has turned the Red Sea into one of the most dangerous places to be a sailor in the world. Even with a brief ceasefire in May 2025, the threat never really went away. The return of deadly attacks in July proved the crisis was far from over and drew renewed condemnation from the United Nations. The situation is a messy, volatile chessboard. Military force hasn't been a magic bullet, and diplomatic solutions are incredibly complex. All the while, the Houthis have proven they can sustain their campaign, using their strategic location to throw a wrench in the gears of the global economy. The Red Sea crisis is a powerful reminder of how interconnected our world is, and how fast a regional conflict can throw global stability off balance. If you want more in-depth analysis that breaks down the complex forces shaping our world, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. What's happening in the Red Sea is more than just piracy. It's a direct challenge to the freedom of navigation and the stability of the global supply chain. A determined rebel group has successfully used its location and a modern arsenal to slap a tax on international trade, forcing a costly and inefficient rerouting of thousands of ships. The economic fallout has been swift and widespread, from soaring shipping costs to the threat of higher prices for consumers and major revenue losses for countries like Egypt. The international military response, led by Operation Prosperity Guardian and the EU's Operation Aspides, has shown both the impressive power of modern navies and the limits of that power against a persistent, unconventional threat. Despite all the military effort, the attacks have continued, and the human cost paid by civilian seafarers keeps rising. There are no easy answers here. The crisis is a tangled knot of regional politics, global economics, and military strategy. As long as this waterway remains a high-risk zone, the shockwaves will keep hitting ports, boardrooms, and store shelves around the world. The future of the Red Sea, and the massive amount of trade that relies on it, is hanging in a delicate balance between conflict and commerce.